My name is Randy Morgan. I am the property manager here at Christ Little Rock. Born and raised here in Central Arkansas. I grew up on the other side of the river, what I was referred to as the right side of the river my whole life. I grew up out there, married, beautiful wife Audra, who attends church here as well. And we have 5 kids. Our youngest is 8 and our oldest is 18, graduating high school this year. I was in the restaurant business for about 18 and a half years, and then left the restaurant business to pursue my own business. Opened a remodel, handyman business type thing, and then about a year ago, God really jumped in and intervened in my life when I wasn't paying attention. When that's not what I was looking for, and it wasn't what I was asking for. I was asking for my business to grow, and I was asking for those things that I wanted to continue to get bigger, and they continued to get smaller. And then I guess about a year ago, the beginning of this month, in May of last year of 24, business had all but stopped. And so after consulting with Audra and her and I figuring things out, I decided to try and go back into the restaurant business. Obviously tons of years of experience, and so I expected it to be a jump right back in and hit the ground running. We were already trying to make plans on who was going to be with kids and who was going to whatever, because we knew that was going to happen, and then it didn't. And multiple doors just kept getting silently or loudly closed in my face. And I didn't understand why. After having been looking for something different for about 11 weeks and having no luck, I broke down and said, okay, Lord, what's the deal? Why do I keep running into these brick walls? And I really felt the need to expand my search on a job hunting website, and so I expanded the search, and the role of property manager at Christ Little Rock Church and School popped up and caught my attention, but was not anything that was even on my radar at that point. And about the time that I filled out the application here, I got a call back from another interview that I had done. It would have been a very good, very profitable position, working with people that I already knew and was already comfortable with. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I just needed to start looking somewhere else for the door to open. And so I went ahead with that interview process, went to the second interview, went through the drug screening process and all the rest of that, and then got to a federal screening process. Had to go in and do my fingerprints. And so I went in and did my fingerprints. That afternoon, I got a phone call from Pastor Matt saying, hey, I'd like you to come in for an interview. And so I thought, I don't need this. I've already found my job. But the Spirit kind of spoke to me and said, go to the interview. And I thought, but I'm not even Lutheran. So I came in to an interview with Pastor Matt and Principal Steely and Director Noe. And we had a really good interview. We talked a lot about grace and forgiveness and love and things that I'd never talked about in an interview before. But growing up in church as a preacher's grandkid, they were all things that were very familiar to me, but things that had not really been on my lips in a while. And came in, interview went great. I got a phone call back the next day, hey, we want to move forward with you if you're okay with this. Because it's a school, we need you to fill out some paperwork, we need to run background checks and things of that nature. So I said, yeah, absolutely, because I still hadn't heard anything back from this other sure position that I knew I was going to get. So I went ahead and filled out the paperwork for here, and then I was talking with Audra. Like, I have paperwork filled out in two completely opposite different places, and I feel really, really great about one and very intrigued by another. And so then I got a phone call from the first position that I had applied for, saying that my background check had come back and my fingerprints had come back as somebody that was not me. They didn't come back as Randall F. Morgan Jr. They came back as someone else. And because of how things have been entered into the system, that threw me out of eligibility for 30 days, I think, and was going to have to redo. Well, at this point, I've been without a full-time bringing money home job for almost 3 months. Things are getting very tight. My wife's having to pull all of the weight, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I sat down at my kitchen table and I opened the Word up. It's where I always go whenever I have questions and concerns. And I opened the Word up and was like, Lord, I need you to speak to me because I am so lost. I have no idea what to do. And I very quietly heard, I've already opened that door. And I just thought, like, never in a million years would I have anticipated myself being in a position of working at a school and at a church, especially one from a different denomination than I was raised. And that next morning, Pastor Matt called and said, hey, we've got everything back that we need. When can you come in? And I felt flooded with gratitude, flooded with thankfulness, but I still wasn't, I was still hanging on to stuff. I was still holding on to, I was very comfortably living in my own sin at that time. And knowing that there were plans that God had for my life that I had felt my entire life, that I had turned away from and said, nah, you must be asking for somebody else. That was my grandpa, that was my cousin, that was not this guy. But I tell you, I found in this church the gospel being preached, the gospel being lived out, that being the goal for people that I met was, how do I be more like Christ? How can I imitate him more in my daily walk? How can I lead people to him just by being? And that was different for me. It was different for me. And I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the heart of this church. I was able to join my heart in very quickly, make some really strong, fast friends, was able to jump on service teams really quick. There were so many opportunities to love and to be loved on, left and right. And I was at a time in my life where I needed that. And the more that we got plugged in, and the more steps we took towards the purpose that I know that God has called me for, and called my family for, the more things began to happen. The more things we began to see, the more doors that began to open, the different gifts that began to show up of, let me take care of this, let me take care of that. Hey, don't worry about it, let us do this for you. Just things I've never experienced in my career or my adult life were happening on a daily basis. And it was this constant of going home and talking to my wife and my children about, like, this happened and that happened, and then in January my kids were able to be enrolled here, and then the tremendous growth that I've seen in them from being able to be surrounded by people that are constantly loving on them as well. has just been ginormous in our family, you know. And then being able to have those conversations with my family, my extended family, of, you know, getting to see God work in this place and getting to be a part of that, getting to work with the youth or work with men's ministry or work in worship or whatever it is, like getting to see God move doesn't always have to be what you thought it would be. Sometimes it's step back and just look at the wonder of God and how he works and who he works with. You know, we always expect things to look a certain way from our carnal human standpoint. We always expect God to move in a certain way, or it needs to be a Red Sea parting moment. It's not always the seas get parted. Sometimes it's, let me walk you through this. And you know, we've really, I've said this before, we really have learned that on the other side of being obedient, the things that will open in your life because you said yes. Sometimes the best thing that you can say to God is yes. Not, okay God, but, okay if, okay when, but just yes. Just yes. How can I be used? Yes. Will I let you use me? Yes. Whatever it is. God calls all of us to do things. Sometimes he calls you to be a parent. Sometimes he calls you to be a pastor. Sometimes a teacher. Many different roles that we get called into. Take everything that you do and dig into that calling. Whatever that is. Right? Because being a parent, you may not think that, oh, I've just been called to be a parent, that's it. But maybe you are raising the next world shaker. Right? And you were leading them down a path to know God better and to see you implementing those things in your life that then inspires them to draw closer to God, and God uses them, right? Like, I'm sure Billy Graham's mom, like, we don't even know who she is. We don't even know her name. She poured into her son the values of Christ and salvation, and look what happened because of it, right? So take every moment that God has given you and turn it back to him. If you think you're too far away, if you think you've done something that he's not going to forgive, if you think that first of all, there's not anything that you've ever done that he doesn't already know about, right? Like, when you come to Jesus, right, like, I mean, he knows every single thing that there is. So you're not going to hide anything from him. You're not keeping anything from him. Just be honest with him and tell him where you are and say, you know, listen, man, I'm stuck in this and I need help. The Bible says that he will be your help. And when you put that faith into action, when you don't have limits and you don't have doubts and you don't have boundaries and borders set up around this box of what you think God should, could, or would be, but you allow the Word to speak to you and you allow the Holy Spirit to speak to you, Christ will change your life. I am living